Welcome to the Business Owners Council, Legal Issues from Growth to Exit.
All right, well, we are switching things up today, so I get to play the host, and I've got a guest. Diana, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I am Diana Jaquith. I am a angel investor and multiple business owner, and I love the active business. Like when people are like, "Oh, what's your hobby?" It's business. So it's something I love to do and love to spend my time on.
Well, I thought you'd be the perfect guest on here because you do wear a lot of hats. You work with a lot of growing companies. So you brought up being an investor. So why don't we start there? Let's talk a little bit about you, Diana, as the investor. So when you are, well, why don't you first talk a little bit about what type of companies you've invested in and maybe even exited?
There's been quite a few companies I love to invest in. Always have to have a mission focus. There's a lot of businesses out there. You can invest in a lot of things and do a lot of different things. But for me, making sure that the mission aligns with my personal mission, even if it's not something that I, personally am looking to solve. If it's something that I think makes the world a better place, that's definitely something I'm interested in investing in. So some of the businesses that I've invested in there's a play cafe, which essentially is a place where moms can come and drink a cup of coffee, or I should say parents, because it's not just for moms. Parents can come have some coffee and have their kids play while they can connect with other people in the community, basically creating that third place. Like that's what Starbucks has strived to be. Like, okay, it's home, work, and that third place. What's that third place? And so that's a business that really aligns with, hey, creating a community wherever you're at. Also investing in moms. I think being a mom is hard enough, so I always look for opportunities to be in businesses there. I've invested in software companies. I've invested in t-shirt companies, but again, all of them have different missions that focus on making really the world a better place to be in.
So you're very driven by investing in companies that align with things that you are passionate about and want to pursue. So what about on the flip side of it? I'm sure as an investor, you are, you become aware of opportunities where you say, no, that one's not for me. So what are some red flags that you see as an investor? Things that you're like, I know, hard stop, I'm not investing in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things you can look at, right? Like founder alignment, right? So not everybody that you work with or you meet, you completely gel with, right? So if there's hey, I don't really align with this person for one thing or another. It could just be either personality or just like, I don't really particularly want to spend time with this person. We've all met those. That's an immediate, like, okay, even though I really like what they're doing, I'm not going to want to go to a meeting. I'm not going to want to be there. And if I don't want to be there, then I'm not going to spend my time there and I'm not going to be able to be helpful or successful there. So I'm not the right fit for them. If I have kind of a criteria that I look for. I call it like fishy, which is just kind of a funny acronym for it. But, faith, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have the same alignment in faith as me, but that they have to have faith, that they believe that there's more to the world than themselves is really important for me. So like you look, generally people who have, some sort of faith are looking beyond themselves. And so therefore it kind of applies to them in business. Integrity is the I, so FI. I'm looking for somebody who has integrity. Like, what are they going to do when things aren't going their way? How are they going to act when nobody's in the room? How do they talk? How do they talk about others? You look for those pieces of integrity. S is stewardship. And so I look for, okay, how are they stewarding both their finances and their team? So like, let's say they may be in a financial bind and needing a cash infusion, but how have they stewarded the resources that are already available to them? And do they have that ability to do that? So I've had many people who've had everything except for the stewardship piece, and that's a really hard one to teach. It is teachable, but it is, something like, just kind of knowing where somebody's at on being able to do the most that they can with what they've gotten. And the last one is interest, right? So if I'm not interested in it, again, I'm probably not going to spend time there, and therefore I'm not an effective angel investor, right? So you can be a passive investor in that scenario, but if it's not a software or a company or a project or a product that I think is interesting, I probably won't be as involved as I should be, and therefore it's not a great fit for me. So fishy is kind of the way
Yeah, I like that.
I put it together.
Well, it gives you, it gives you a structure of things to look at, but it's probably not so structured that you can't, look at different businesses and figure out, are they high on this one and medium here? So is that kind of the process you go through? You actually line up the owners in the business with your criteria, and then that's how you make a decision?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is it. So when I meet somebody who, might be looking for an investment or looking for a partnership or something of that nature, I walk through it. I honestly get to know them first, right? Because for me, again, business is relational. And so you have to get to know the people. Like, again, if you don't enjoy spending time with them or you don't, like their ideas or how they do business, again, you don't have to have everything in perfect alignment.
Right.
That is unrealistic, but there can be, hey, I really like the way this person thinks. I really like the way that they
Sure.
solve problems. And so then that's something that you can continue to invest in. But yeah, it's mostly getting to know them and then kind of running them. I mean, I don't like give them analysis of like, hey, here you where you rank on my scale. But if I'm going to be considering to give you an MOA, like somewhere where we're going to like potentially talk, a memorandum of agreement, we're going to look at things, right? That's my initial criteria before we get into any due diligence or anything there.
So let's just say for a moment you're speaking here to business owners who are looking to get an investment. Like that's that they need a cash infusion, or they want a partner, or for whatever reason they're motivated to bring in an investor. What's kind of like the one or two pieces of advice you would give them to either secure that spot or match with the right type of person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really aligns with some of the exit planning things that we do, right? It's yes, you want to start looking for things ahead of when you need it. So like just with like an exit planning, like you want to work with a value accelerator before you get to the point where you're ready to exit. If you want an investor, you need to be looking for one a year or two before you actually need it, because it is a pretty long process in to find an investor. Sometimes like everything aligns and you're like, hey, I need something this week, and you find somebody this week, great, but that is highly unusual. So and it's also about the network, right? So where do you find, like, where are you looking for an investor? Are you looking for an angel investor? So maybe an angel network makes sense, right? If you're looking for that type of investment. If you're looking for more traditional, like a PE or VC investment, like putting your hat in the ring for those conversations, there's lots of accelerators. I mean, in the past 10 years, the landscape has changed significantly for founders. So I do think there's a lot of opportunities out there. But I think it's really determining what type of money you want and from whom, right? Because depending on what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for, hey, I just want somebody to give me money quickly and I don't want anything involved, that is going to be a lot harder to find than somebody who's like really invested in making sure, generally when people give you money, they're invested in your success because you now have their money, right? And so they want to make sure you're going to win. So there's a lot of ways to structure it, but I would just say start looking sooner, and also make sure like what values you're looking for as well. Like if you want them to be more involved or less involved, if you want them to have similar mission vision, or it doesn't really matter. Like there's a lot of places to find it. It just depends on exactly what that fit is for you. I think that's I feel like that's the answer to most of the times when I ask you, Kevin, a question. It depends, right? Like it just depends.
Yeah, now you've mastered how to be a lawyer. Just say it depends.
It depends, right?
No, well, I think a lot of that is it's really important. One thing that you mentioned first of all was don't wait till it's an emergency, right?
Yeah.
Get ahead of it, have a plan,
Mhm.
so you can kind of execute on that. And then secondly, make sure that you know what your goal is with raising the money, right? So it's like
Mhm.
you're bringing in not just dollars, but also experience or a person behind that, and so that's got to be a match too. So I think really good advice there. But you did bring up exit planning, and so that's something that we probably should talk about, right? That's how we work together at Corleo Advisors as exit planners. So first of all, obviously you had the background as an investor, but what made you decide to formally get into exit planning?
That's also a great question. So I've been a part of many exits, both as members of the executive team, as a owner, as a investor. So I've sat at every seat pretty much in the table: employee, owner, investor, and I've been a part of some really awful exits. Just ones that the owner has been upset about, the entire team has quit on. That it didn't the business wasn't what it said it was. I mean, I've seen so many catastrophic exits that I knew that this couldn't be the way. Like this didn't have to. It didn't have to be like this. It didn't have to. When you sit and sign away your business or you invest in something that something bad was going to happen. And so for me, it was really looking at like, how do I not be at that table again? How do I make sure that the business owners that I work with and the investments I make are solid and that everyone walks away winning? Because I truly believe that there's always a way to win. There's always a way to find a solution. I'm never like, oh, there has to be a loser. I'm like, actually, we can all win. Let's just figure out what that is. And so for me, that was the real driving piece of having those experiences and being a part of those teams and just watching people's lives disintegrate from a poor exit. That is really the reason why I wanted to become a formal exit planning advisor, just to be that strategic advisor to warn about the things that are coming, to help people look ahead. And then also truly like my aspect of what I do, like while you get to work with people on a lot of like the details and legality of the final part, I do a lot of the work that I do is helping people get situated ahead of it. And so I don't do a whole lot in the what do you call it, bottom of the ninth, like whereas I feel like you guys do a lot of that, right? From on the legal world, I do a lot of stuff. I'm like the first and second inning, right? I'm here to help make sure you're squared away so that your business can be valued at the most it can be, or as an investor, making sure the business is as clean and ready for a transition or investment as it possibly could be.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you said there that hit me was, talking about when the exit goes poorly, you see people's lives disintegrate. And so it's such a, it's a terrible thing, but I think it's more common than people realize, because a
Absolutely.
lot of founders, their whole livelihood is
Mm,
so closely intertwined with the performance of their business. And then
yeah.
if, as we talk about getting to the ninth inning, and doing that well, it's so important. And it doesn't just happen by accident. It doesn't just happen because you wade into it, right? Like you said, you've got to be planning at the initial stages. So when you're thinking about an owner who needs to get involved with an exit planner, what's the ideal time frame or conditions when it makes sense to bring somebody in like yourself to help with planning for an exit for an owner?
Yeah, I think uh I really look at like the 3 to 5 year mark where you want to make sure everything's squared away, right? So your financials are looked at anywhere between 1 to 5 years, depending on the size of the business, scale of business, the fluctuation of the business. So if somebody's looking to purchase your business, or even if you're looking to internally sell or transition, because like that's the other thing too, is like we talk about exiting. It doesn't necessarily mean, hey, somebody's going to come in and buy your business. Maybe you're passing it on to your son, daughter, grandkid, whatnot. You want everything to be squared away. You don't want to hand them all the problems that you haven't dealt with, right? And so I really like 3 years, I would say, is really the point where you go, hey, I want everything to be reviewed. So for example, I was sitting at a signing table for a business, and I kind of come in the last minute and had worked on a lot of the marketing pieces, and I hadn't touched the finance side. But that's like generally a side of them was like, hey, we got to get that cleaned up and it's all good. And they're like, hey, it's all good. When we got down to set the table, it came out that there had been the books had been cooked, essentially, that there had been an additional
Wow.
$300,000 per quarter added on of if we had these items in stock, we would have had that revenue. So it completely changed. They didn't have the items in stock, so they didn't sell them. So that revenue didn't exist. But hypothetically, if they had those items in stocks, that was the books that were turned in, right? And
Wow.
so, and therefore they lost that deal. That deal is done. And again, just watch like the ramification of that decision, and those decisions are significant. So why I always say like having an exit planning team really makes sense is because if you have your stuff looked at by other people, they're going to call out and say, hey, wait, there's no inventory tracking to this. Like this, where did this come from? That the business could have still sold at an incredible, probably, 10x EBITDA and still been a really amazing exit. It probably would have just lost a little bit off the value if that had been solved. So it's always, there's a lot of things that go into an exit. But those are, definitely looking at and going, hey, I want to make sure we have a third party review of everything that's going on. Both, from the legal side is what you do is making sure all the contracts, vendors, everything's set up. For me, it's like making sure both on the financial side and on the marketing and ops side, like you're good to go. There isn't anything that somebody is going to discover 2 weeks after they sign the deal with you and then potentially create a whole bunch of issues for you going down the line. So that's a bad story. There's good stories too, but
Well,
I generally say, hey, 3 years is enough time where you can really get into it. Obviously, even a year is plenty of time to get things squared away. But the better value we can, really do for you by cleaning things up can really enhance like what you can actually sell for based off of your financial picture.
yeah, I mean, I think there's two separate things there. One is you want to discover, you don't want your potential buyer to be discovering problems in your business that you don't know about right before
Correct.
you get to the deal, right? That's going
Mhm.
to blow it up or can
Mhm.
blow it up, cause big problems with the value. But then, on the plus side of what you're talking about too is when you're 2 to 3 years out, you really can pull a lot of levers that actually enhance the value, that make it more likely to sell, make it more attractive to the marketplace. So I'll ask you, just if you are getting involved in that 2 to 3 years ahead of time and you are able to do some different things, what are some examples of kind of those levers that you pull on the marketing, operational, and financial side, where you're getting involved early and then that is going to affect the outcome positively?
So on the operating side, essentially it's creating like streamlined processes. So what can we look at in the business? Like where are people spending their time? What can we cut down on um, from like just a process perspective? Like let's say it's manufacturing, like what widgets do we need to move where? Like basically doing that overall view of how can we be more efficient on the operation side? Like if it's a product based business, looking at the fulfillment processes, just really like deep diving it to figure out how to be more efficient on the operations side. And again, also making it so, like you said, if they do leave, like if it's a true hands-off exit, that they're able to leave well, and there isn't anybody. Well, John here is the only guy who knows how to turn this particular bolt, and so like we remove any of those things that create any owner or team dependency. We also look for like those concentration issues. On the
Mm.
marketing side, it's a lot of fun because marketing is just the way I see it is marketing's math, right? So you increase if you look at like if on the e-commerce side, you're playing a whole bunch of different games of sessions to conversion rate to AOV and just playing that over and over and looking at that. But it's also evaluating all your marketing levers and going, hey, which of these are working and are we getting the ROAS that we need to the return on ad spend in order to continue to do that? And hey, yes, we have a 10x ROAS here. Okay, if we push that lever a little bit more, what else can we like? How much can that business grow? So again, we evaluate all of the different levers. If we're not using any of the levers, we determine, hey, is there a lever we do want to pull on? Do we want to pull on email marketing? Do we want to pull on our partnerships? Do we want to figure out different vendor relationships? So it's really unique. I mean, it depends, right? To every
Right.
every different
That felt
customer.
a little condescending, maybe that.
Um, but but it does. It really depends. But essentially, it's a similar audit structure of, hey, we're going to look at retention, we're going to look at retargeting, we're going to look at acquisition. How are each of these levers working to our benefit or not? And then also the goal is to like free up anything that we need to. Like, hey, are we double paying for subscriptions? Do we have dead weight across, on a couple of these things? Are these ads actually working? Like basically we just identify gaps that could kill deals. So
Sure.
yeah, and we talked about customer concentration a little bit too. Like, do you only have one big customer? Well, that makes you way less valuable if you have 300 customers, right? So if
Right.
you lose one, you're only going down 0.3%.
And so as you're kind of gliding into that finish line for a business that's looking to exit in 2 to 3 years, being able to show improvements and growth and um, key players that are retained, all those kind of things. Buyers like that. That makes you stand out in the marketplace, right? I mean, those are all great things that I think, as we talked about these kind of from the standpoint of pulling levers, um, that sets businesses apart when they're growing and when they're improving and all those things right into the sale, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, there's lots of obstacles to a successful exit, which is why like working with an exit planning team makes a lot of sense because, first is like if you're burned out or desperate, like let's say a lot of exits are like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm done.
Right. I'm
Well,
done.
I mean, like, that's not a good place to start from. Second, like owner dependency, right? That's one of the things we work really hard on is making sure the business can run without you, right? Like that's it. That's a huge part of it, which we can help solve, when you're working with them. The third is like poor financial records. Another thing that like the goal is, operation or financial records, those things can kill a deal. And fourth is like emotional attachment with which, we talk about that a lot. It's like, okay, what are you going to do after the exit? Right. And
Sure.
that's a big part of the exit planning process too. So, yeah, we work to kind of eliminate those obstacles to a successful exit.
So for business owners listening to this and they're saying, this is my exact person I need to get with and talk to about how to get me ready to sell my business or maximize its value, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So Corleo Advisors, we'll link it, I'm sure in the podcast notes, but I'm just Diana at Corleo Advisors. Love to talk with you. And learn a little bit more about your business because it does depend on it. And so happy to work through like what is the best next steps for you.
All right. Diana, thanks so much for joining us today. We've really appreciated hearing about your experience and advice and look forward to connecting with you offline.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. It was great to be here.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.